When I fell down at work, the doctors called my parents right away. But they didn't come. Instead, my sister, Seraphine, put a picture of me on Instagram. It was a picture of our family, and the caption said, "Family day without the drama." I didn't say anything. I just stared at the phone and felt nothing. A few days later, I was still very weak and connected to machines in the hospital. I could barely move, and everything hurt a little. Then I saw 74 missed calls on my phone and a text from my dad. The text said, "We need you. Answer immediately." I had a feeling something was wrong for weeks, but I had kept going like I always did. This wasn't the first time I ignored the signs. I had headaches, felt dizzy, sometimes my chest hurt, and my heart felt weird. But I told myself I couldn't slow down. Not when I was helping pay my mom's car. Not when my sister Seraphine was always texting me every couple of days asking for a small loan. And definitely not when my dad pretended that his bills were my responsibility. People don't understand. They see pictures of families smiling, having fun, and think everything is perfect. But they don't know what it's like to grow up in a house where you feel invisible. I was the only boy in the house, and it felt like I was always just in the background. My sisters, Seraphine and Aloan, could crash a car, make mistakes, or do something wrong, and somehow they would still get praised for learning something valuable. I once won a big statewide engineering award. That means I was recognized for being really good at solving complicated problems. But my mom didn't even celebrate. She just said, "Oh, cool. Did you thank your teacher?" I didn't even want recognition anymore. I didn't want someone to say, "Good job." I just wanted a little bit of gratitude, a small thank you. But that never came. So I kept working. I worked weekends. I paid bills I wasn't supposed to pay. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was helping my family. I kept telling myself it was okay, until that Monday afternoon. I was at my desk, getting ready for a big presentation for a major client. I was focused, making slides and notes. Then I stood up to get a folder from the printer. And then nothing. Everything went black. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything. I woke up to beeping machines, cold bright lights, and wires stuck to my chest. A nurse was adjusting a drip. It felt unreal, like a scene in a movie, but it was happening to me. This wasn't a panic attack. This wasn't just being tired. It was a serious heart problem, a real cardiac event. The doctor told me it could have gone much worse if I hadn't collapsed right there in the office. Someone had called 911 immediately. My coworkers, people I barely talked to sometimes, were the reason I was still alive. The hospital staff was amazing. They were kind, professional, and they noticed that my parents weren't coming. They told me they had already tried calling them. I waited. I waited for 2 whole days. No texts, no calls, no visits. Nothing. Then, on the 3rd day, I woke up from a nap and checked my phone. Only one notification. Just one. It was from Seraphine. She had tagged me in a picture of our parents at a picnic. They were all smiling. My mom had even made her famous deviled eggs. The caption said, "Family day without the drama." That caption hit me harder than my collapse ever did. They had tagged me like I was some joke, like I didn't almost die in a hospital bed while they laughed over potato salad. I didn't respond. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Something inside me broke that day. Not in a loud, angry way, but quietly, like a door closing forever. I kept recovering slowly. The doctors monitored my heart. They ran tests. I barely spoke to anyone unless I had to. And still, not a single word from my family. 4 days later, I woke up to 74 missed calls and a text from my dad. "We need you. Answer immediately." There was no apology. No, "How are you?" Just those words. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't even hesitate. I sat up, still weak, still hooked to machines, and without thinking twice, I dialed a number, but not theirs. I called someone else. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me, where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? I remembered a number I hadn't used in a long time. It was saved under a name I never deleted, Virio. I hadn't called him in months. Not because we weren't close, but because I knew he was right about my family, and I was too embarrassed to admit it. That morning I called him. He picked up on the 2nd ring. He didn't ask how I was. He just asked which hospital. That was it. No hesitation. No questions. No silence. Just a quick, immediate response like I mattered. That was something I hadn't felt in years. He showed up 40 minutes later. He looked exactly the same as always. Same windbreaker. Same watch he had worn since I was a kid. Same serious face, like nothing surprised him anymore. But he was always ready. He walked in, sat down, and said, "So they finally broke you too, huh?" I didn't even ask how he knew. I just nodded. He stayed with me all day. He talked to my nurse. He asked real questions. Quietly, he paid for one of the tests my insurance had rejected without making a big deal of it. Then he helped me sort through the disaster I had left on autopilot. We went through everything. My name was on 5 different loan agreements, 3 credit cards, 2 utility bills, and a car insurance policy for a vehicle I didn't even drive. It was all so automatic that I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten. Every time my family had a rough patch, I stepped in quietly, automatically. I thought that was what family meant. Fixing problems without expecting anything back. But the truth is they expected me to do it. When I didn't or couldn't, I became the problem. The drama. I wasn't a person to them. I was a pressure valve. A cash machine. A helper. Only useful as long as I didn't remind them of what they owed me. Virio helped me draft a list. Every account. Every connection. Then we started shutting them off one by one. I canceled the auto transfer to Seraphine's checking account. She said she was barely getting by, but she had gone on 3 trips to Miami that year and posted about all of them. She could handle her own bills now. I removed Alohan's rent deposit. My mom's car insurance? She could call the provider herself. I removed my card info, changed passwords. The loan I co-signed for Seraphine, the one she conveniently forgot to mention for months? I flagged it and filed a fraud report. Not to hurt her, but because I would not be her backup plan forever. Virio didn't say much, but sometimes he made little noises like he was both disappointed and not surprised. He was the only one who had ever told me the truth. Loyalty is only as strong as the people you are loyal to. By the time he left that evening, the calls had doubled. My phone had to be silenced. My mom left voicemails pretending she had just heard what happened. Alohan sent texts in all caps, hoping that would make me respond faster. Seraphine went quiet, which in her case meant she was probably preparing something worse. Then another message came from Dad. "This is serious. Call me now. Everything is falling apart." Still no mention of the hospital. Not one word about me. Just panic. Not for me, but because they knew what was coming. The first domino had fallen. But they didn't realize that I was the one who had pushed it. I was still in the hospital when the fallout began. At first, it was voicemails. 1 dozen. 2 dozen. So many I stopped checking. I played one on speaker just to see if anything had changed. It was my mom. She said, "I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this isn't the way to do it." That was her tone. Not fear. Not concerned. Just frustration that the ATM wasn't working. Seraphine texted next. No words at first. Just a screenshot of her checking account. The balance, $29. Then she added, "What the hell is going on? Fix this." I stared at the screen. Anger rose for a moment, then I let it go. It wasn't new. It was just louder now. Alohan tried a different approach. Her text was longer. Emotional. She said she loved us and wanted peace. She ended it with, "Please don't punish me for things I didn't do." That was funny because the last time we spoke, she rolled her eyes when I said I couldn't co-sign another lease, then disappeared for 3 months. Finally, it was my dad who crossed the line. He showed up at my apartment. Eldrick had warned me. He had seen his car outside earlier, idling. I was still recovering, too weak to walk without help. But that didn't stop him from parking outside like he was waiting for a hostage to be released. I didn't respond. Later that day, I got a text message. I was still at the hospital, trying to recover, when my phone buzzed. I picked it up, and it was from my family. The message said, "You're about to destroy everything we built. I hope you understand the damage you're causing. Everything we built." I couldn't help but laugh. I laughed out loud, right there in the hospital bed. The words were so bold, so crazy, I had to read them again. I wanted to make sure I hadn't imagined it. There was no "I'm sorry." There was no "Are you okay after being in the hospital?" Nothing about the reason I had been there in the first place. Just fear. They were scared. Scared that I might finally stop letting them control me. Scared that they might not have the power over me anymore, because they had always had it for so long. That was all it was, fear. Then came a post online. Seraphine, my sister, shared a video. I opened it and watched. There was no music, no talking, just a slow, dramatic walk through my parents' house. The house was completely empty. Not just cleaned up, not just neat, but empty. Evicted empty. Every room looked like it had been stripped. The front door was wide open. The living room had no furniture at all. The dining table was gone. Even the curtains had been taken down. The video felt like a warning, like they were showing off what they had done. The caption under the video read, They took everything. I watched it once, then opened my bank app. I checked the mortgage for my parents' house. It had defaulted again. That means we weren't making the payments, and the bank was getting ready to take action. I looked closer. They had used the house money, the money from the equity, to pay off Seraphine's credit card. They had also used it to fund Alohan's online business idea. I didn't remember exactly what it was, a candle shop or a clothing store. But it didn't matter. It failed within 2 months. And none of that money had gone into the mortgage. None. I remembered warning them last year. I had said it only once. I said, if you don't manage this money better, I'm out. But they didn't believe me. They thought I was bluffing. And so, when I finally walked away, when I finally stopped helping, the bank moved in. Eldrick was there when I found the documents. I didn't say anything at first. I just scrolled through them and showed him the balance, the late fees, and the notices I had never seen because they had gone straight to my parents' address. Eldrick nodded once. Just once. Then he made a few calls. One to his lawyer. Another to an old friend who specialized in estate planning. Then finally to his accountant, who I hadn't even known existed until that day. What I learned next made everything clear. My family hadn't just been leaning on me and taking advantage of me. They had been quietly poking around my grandfather too, especially after he retired. Alohan had taken him to brunch twice, which she had never done before. Seraphine brought him a Christmas gift last year for the first time in 10 years. Mom even hinted during a phone call that he should start thinking about what's fair. But my grandfather had seen it all coming. He had prepared for it. Every asset, every trust, every property he owned, he had already moved. Not to punish anyone, but to protect it from them. And now most of it was under a new name. Mine. Not as a gift, not as a reward, but because I was the only one who hadn't asked for it. I had shown, clearly and painfully, that I could survive without it. That I didn't feel entitled to it. And in his words, that made me the only one worthy of it. That night, Seraphine showed up at the hospital. She wasn't on the list, so security didn't let her in. But I saw her through the window. She was pacing in the parking lot, phone in hand, probably talking to Alohan. She had sunglasses on even though it was getting dark, like she was preparing for a confrontation that never happened. She left after 15 minutes. I thought that was the end of it. But then a final message came through an hour later. It said, if you don't fix this, I swear to God, you'll regret it. No emojis, no hearts, no hashtags, just that sentence. And it didn't scare me the way she thought it would. I didn't feel threatened or cornered. For the first time, I didn't feel anything. I had stopped trying to be the son, the brother, the fixer. Now I was just free. Then there was a knock at the hospital room door. I thought it was a nurse. But it wasn't. A staff member came in, looking uncomfortable, and said, there's a woman downstairs claiming to be your medical proxy. She says she's your sister and needs to speak with your doctor immediately. I stared at her, confused at first. I hadn't listed anyone from my immediate family as an emergency contact. Just my grandfather. I asked who it was. She checked the notes. Alohan. I almost laughed. She hadn't texted me in days. She hadn't visited. She hadn't even acknowledged I was in the hospital until I cut off her rent assistance. And now she was trying to speak for me. I told the staff that no one was authorized. The hospital agreed and had security escort her out without letting her anywhere near my room. I thought it was just her being dramatic. I was wrong. A few hours later, Eldrick walked in holding a manila envelope. He dropped it on the bed and sat down. Inside were printed screenshots of an email exchange between my parents and a small law firm I had never heard of. They were looking into legal guardianship, specifically over me. I read it 3 times just to make sure I understood. My parents were trying to claim that I was unwell, mentally unstable, erratic, and potentially suffering from post-traumatic stress or a breakdown. They said that my recent financial decisions showed a pattern of emotional volatility. Their goal was clear. If they could get someone, preferably my father, appointed as a temporary conservator, they could freeze the financial reversals I had already set in motion, restore access to accounts, reopen credit, and regain control. They were trying to make me look incapable. The same people who didn't even check if I was alive 4 days ago. I sat with that for a while. Eldrick was calm. He told me this wasn't new to him. Years ago, when my uncle tried to break away from the family for similar reasons, my parents had floated the idea then too. It never went anywhere. But now, with real money at stake, they were actually trying. They weren't calling because they cared. They were calling because they were cornered. I went quiet the rest of the day. Not sad, but focused. Something in me clicked. I had spent my whole life hoping they'd wake up, see how much I gave, maybe even apologize. But they weren't waking up. They were trying to rewrite the story to make me the villain. So I made a list. Every account, every shared asset, every payment I had set up to help over the years. My lawyer, the one Eldrick introduced me to, came by that evening with paperwork already in hand. We filed the following morning. A cease and desist to both my sisters and parents, barring them from contacting any of my doctors or pretending to be my medical proxy. A fraud watch on every financial institution where I had ever had shared access with any family member. A restraining barrier on property transfers tied to my name. If anyone tried to sell or move an asset I had co-signed, it would trigger a legal freeze. My HR department moved all direct deposits to a new bank, one they didn't know existed, under a holding trust created by my grandfather's estate advisor. It was the first time in my life that I felt secure. Then the next hit came. Eloan posted a video. Her makeup was smudged, the lighting was terrible, and the camera shook just enough to look raw. It started with her sniffling and ended with her looking straight into the lens. She didn't say my name, but she said enough. She said that someone in our family was going through something dark. They were trying to help him, but he was lashing out and hurting people. We don't want to lose him, but we also can't keep letting him destroy everything we've built. It was that same phrase again, like I had just wandered into their empire and flipped the lights off. The video took off fast. Her friends started commenting. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years sent cryptic texts. Even one of my old coworkers reached out asking if everything was okay. Seraphine reposted it with a heart emoji and the words, "We're all praying for peace." Peace. After they tried to take control of my life, my money, and my health, they weren't praying for peace. They were praying I'd fold. But I didn't. Instead, I posted something of my own. Just a single photo. Me sitting up in the hospital bed next to my grandfather. Nothing dramatic, no long caption, just, sometimes silence isn't a weakness. It's restraint. No hashtags, no tags, no drama. But I knew it would get back to them. And it did. 2 hours later, Seraphine called. I didn't answer. She called again, then Eloan, then my mom. All missed calls. Then came a final text from my father. We didn't want it to come to this. You're forcing us to do things we never wanted to do. They still didn't get it. They still thought they were in charge, but they had no idea what was coming next. The letter came 2 days later. Hand-delivered to the hospital. I opened it thinking maybe they were reaching out with something human. Instead, it was legal. A notice of intent to pursue emergency conservatorship over me. I read it twice before I said anything. They were claiming I was mentally unfit to handle my own finances, that my recent actions, cutting them off, were proof I was spiraling. The letter cited emotional distress, inability to meet obligations, and concerns from family about my mental state after my heart problem. They were trying to take everything officially. I called my lawyer right away. He wasn't shocked. He said this wasn't rare in messy families, especially when someone tries to break the cycle of dependence. They were hoping to file an emergency petition before I could appear in court. If they timed it right, and I missed the window, a judge could temporarily grant it. What they didn't know was that Eldrick and his legal team had already moved. We filed a preemptive response with notarized statements from my doctors confirming I was mentally stable and in full control of my decisions. We sent proof that I had money, messages that showed what happened, and a letter from my work saying that I had chosen to take time off, but I still had my job. After that, the court meeting never even happened. It stopped before it began. They had nothing real to use against me. Their lawyer quit quietly. Maybe he found out my family had lied and didn't want to get into trouble. But that didn't stop them from saying bad things about me. Soon, I started getting strange messages from people I hadn't talked to in a long time. A girl I dated a long time ago sent me a message saying she was sorry I was having a hard time. A person I worked with before emailed me and asked if I needed help getting back on my feet. That's when I understood what my family was doing. They had changed their story. Now they wanted people to think that I had gone crazy, that I had a big problem, and that they were the ones trying to help me. They wanted the world to believe they were kind and good, and I was the one who was broken. Maybe people would have believed it if they hadn't made so many mistakes. Seraphine talked too much. Eloan wanted attention. She made a new video. It looked fancy, like a movie. There were soft lights, sad piano music, and everything looked smooth and pretty. She talked about how some people have hurt feelings that you can't see, how being sick in the mind can be hidden, and how she just wanted her brother back. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew she meant me. People left comments saying things like, "You're so strong. We hope your family heals. He is lucky to have you." Then one comment changed everything. Someone showed an old picture where Seraphine had said, "Family day without the drama," next to another picture of Aloan crying in her new video. The person wrote, "So where was all this love when he was in the hospital?" That comment blew up. It became huge. People stopped feeling sorry for them and started getting mad. People started looking through all their old posts online. They even looked at my dad's business accounts and old things he did at work. What they found was very bad. People saw that Seraphine had tagged me in that post while I was in the ICU. Aloan had written a tweet a couple of years ago saying that some people lie about their pain to get attention. My mom had posted a photo of herself having dinner the day after doctors told her I almost died. People online didn't like what they found. Then Jen, a girl I knew in high school, messaged me. She works in the media now. She remembered how strange my family always was, even when we were younger. She told me the internet wouldn't let lies stay hidden forever. And she was right. People started asking real questions. Aloan's online shop got bad reviews. Customers asked for their money back. Other creators stopped working with her. Seraphine lost her brand deals very fast. A big company unfollowed her and apologized for being connected to her. My dad's job also got pulled into it. A client had seen the story online and asked about it during a meeting. My dad got angry, and then work told him he had to stay home. A week later, they fired him. All the things my family had built with lies started falling apart right in front of them. That was when my mom finally talked. She sent one text message that said, "Please, can we talk?" No guilt, no excuses, just that. I looked at it for a long time. I didn't feel happy or mean. I just felt far away from her. Like she was from an old life I didn't live anymore. I didn't answer. Instead, I wrote a list of things I still needed to end, remove, and close forever. They had gone too far. Not only hurting me, but telling lies to everyone else. They still didn't understand something important. I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't care. I thought they would stop after the conservatorship failed. After everyone online turned against them. After they lost their jobs and deals. But selfish people don't stop. They change their plan. When I got out of the hospital, I was still weak but could walk. My grandpa came to get me. He gave me a drink and said I would stay with him for a few days. That was fine with me. I didn't want to go back to my place because it felt too close to them. While we drove, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't know. It said, "You should come to the house. We need to talk, it is urgent." It was Aloan. I deleted it. 2 hours later, Jen called me. She told me to look at Facebook. My family had posted something. In the picture, Seraphine, Aloan, and my mom stood outside the old house. Behind them was a U-Haul moving truck. My dad was holding a box. They looked sad, like they were crying. They wore dirty old clothes. Seraphine wrote the caption. It said they were hurting because their own blood turned on them, but that they forgave me and wanted me to come home before it was too late. The comments were a battle. Some people felt sorry for them. Others were angry and didn't believe them. Then I saw the last picture. Aloan holding a framed childhood picture of me. Underneath, it said, "We're keeping a room ready. Family is forever." I didn't know if I should be scared or mad. It felt like they were trying to trap me with sadness. They wanted the world to think they were good, and I was the bad one. They wanted me to run back to them. But then something strange came in the mail the next day. A letter from the county office. Inside was a new will written by my dad. He wrote it right after the conservatorship failed. It showed what little he still owned and said everything would go to the family who stayed loyal. Then in shaky handwriting, it said, "Zephin is disinherited until he comes back and forgives the family." I stared at it. Then I laughed. Not because I wanted his things, I never did. I laughed because his final choice was still the same. Another trap. Another way to say, "Come back or we erase you." They never understood something. I wanted to be erased. So my lawyer mailed them a letter back. It said I gave up any right to the money or property. It said I never wanted contact again. It said they can't be my emergency contacts or next of kin anymore. It was simple. It was final. They tried to make me feel bad. They tried to get attention online. They tried to use money. They tried to use their family. But I chose peace. 2 weeks later, Grandpa and I moved to another state. He wanted to see the mountains again. We bought a small cabin near a quiet town. I got a remote job. I read books. I rested. I breathed like a normal person again. Sometimes people from the past message me, asking what really happened. I never explain. Because people like Seraphine and Aloan, and my parents are good at telling stories where they look like the ones hurt. They make themselves the heroes. They make me look like the mean one who left. Let them tell stories. I have the truth. And I have peace. And peace is better than being loved only when you are useful. Even though it all happened and my family tried to control me in every way they could, I finally felt free. Free to wake up, free to go outside, free to take walks in the woods and watch the mountains. Free to have quiet mornings where no one yelled, or cried, or begged me to do things I didn't want. Free to drink hot chocolate without hearing someone complain. Free to read my favorite books and write in my notebook, filling the pages with my thoughts and not someone else's story. Free to laugh without feeling guilty. Grandpa said it was like starting over. I thought about it, and it really was. We didn't have much money. We didn't have a huge house. We didn't have fancy cars. But we had something better. We had safety. We were quiet. We had trust. We had the mountains, the sun, the stars, and mornings that felt like breathing in fresh air for the first time. Every day, I reminded myself of one thing. No matter what my family did, no matter how hard they tried to make me feel bad, no matter the lies they told the world, I could choose my own life. I could choose peace. I could choose happiness. I could choose to be myself. And that choice was mine forever.